you guys got that just for you guys. So I just started it right now. But that's one of the things, you know, I wasn't intending to talk about that, but I think that that's important as we talk about controlling our mindset. The thing that I wanted to talk about today, and this has just been, you know, for me, I'm always looking at how can I grow my understanding, how can I grow my knowledge. And one of the things that came up recently is, you know, we work in sales. And we work in solving problems, which is what I talked about yesterday, right? Is as we look at the market stats and what's happening in the world, we're really going into a very problem-solving mode and a problem-solving mentality. And the thing is that there's a lot of different people that exist out in the world, and we all have very different personality types, right? We all have very different ways of being. And what happens a lot of times is that as individuals, if we're not aware of our personal kind of modes of being, if we're not aware of our personal, you know, personality types, then when we interact with others, we impose our personality style on them, right? We impose our personality style on them. And when we start looking at being in a sales environment, we have to meet people where they are, right? If we're going to be a problem solver, we have to meet people where they are, right? We have to have an understanding of how do we work with different clients. And if we're the salesperson, if we're the influential person, if we're that person that's kind of in control of the interaction, then we need to understand other personality types and how to service those other personality types. And within Keller Williams, we have a couple different tools for that. We do have the KPA, which is the Keller Personality Assessment that really gets deep into the core of how you operate as a person. But here's the thing. We can't just go send all of our clients a link to the KPA, right? That's generally not going to happen. So the other personality assessment that we use is something called the DISC profile, right? The DISC profile. And the DISC profile stands for DISC, which there's 4 different words around those. The first is going to be, the D is for driver, right? It can also be for dominance, right? Driver or dominance. That's going to be a very direct personality type, a very driver personality type. And I'll talk about how this shows up with clients in a couple minutes as well, because I think that part's important. But it's really that direct, very dominant personality. They're very driver personalities tend to be extremely results oriented, right? They tend to be very firm, very strong-willed. They can be a little forceful, right? They can be a little forceful. And then we have our I. And our I personality is going to be very influential, very inspiring personality type. The I stands for influence or for inspiring. And that person is going to be very outgoing, can be really enthusiastic, can be really optimistic, very high energy, high spirited, very lively, right? Then we have our S personality. And our S personality is kind of steady, stable, right? A very steady, stable personality. Like, I'm going to note something about the S. Over 60% of the population leads with S. So if you know how to work with one personality type, over 60% of the population, their dominant trait is the S personality type. Now, this person is more steady, a little bit more even-tempered, can be a little more accommodating. They don't necessarily like to rock the boat. They want to be part of community, right? They want to be part of community. Patient, very humble. This is the person in real estate that wants to know that they made a good investment, right? They made a good investment. It was the right investment. And then the C is going to be more conscientious, but you can also think of that as compliant, right? This is going to be the compliant person. They're a little bit more analytical. They're very systems oriented, can be very private, can be very precise, and very reserved. So that's going to be the personality styles. Now, I'm sure that as I said that, some of you might say, oh my gosh, I felt the one I resonated with. The truth is that we are made up of all 4 of them, right? Where every single person is made up of all four of them. There is no right or wrong combination. What happens is that we have a natural state of being, and then we have an adaptive state of being. And what we want in our world is when we take the DISC personality assessment, we want those to match up a little bit, right? And so when they don't match up, we find that maybe we're not showing up as our most authentic selves, right? Which is really interesting because I've looked at DISC profiles. I'm retaking my DISC profile. I talked about it with our team this morning with Fred, and we're going to be retaking it as a team. But when I first took my DISC profile, and this is back in, I want to say maybe 2015, right? 2015, 2016. My personality assessment, my driver is 99. And my influence is 99 out of 100, right? My natural state of being, which is how you are when nobody's looking, right? It's how you are when you are alone, or even sometimes if you're in a high pressure situation, right? Now, my adaptive, how I am with people, how I was within just positions where I was expected to perform a certain way, my driver personality was much lower, as was my I personality, right? I tempered back that driver personality. I had a coach at the time that one of the things she talked about is that a lot of times, and this especially happens for women that lead with a high driver personality, women tend to temper that part of their personality, right? Women tend to temper that to not come across as very dominant, right? As intimidating. So that's a really interesting thing to kind of look at is also in what role were you when you had that kind of mismatch, if you had that sort of mismatch, right? If your natural and your adaptive have a really big gap, what's going on in your world that's causing that? So for me, a couple things were going on in my world. I had just come out of a business partnership, right? Where I had been a very dominant personality, and the business partnership ended up being the wrong one from an integrity perspective for me. But I made the decision to leave and was still kind of refining myself, right? I was kind of refining myself. So I tempered a lot of that dominant personality. I was also just getting started as an agent. I was kind of brand new on the selling side of real estate, and I was doing some other projects on the side. And so I find that I tempered that because I wasn't necessarily in a role of leadership anymore, right? I was in a very different place in my life when I took that DISC assessment. So I thought it was really interesting to kind of think back to what my life looked like when I took that test and how that showed up. And I'm going to be taking it again. And I'll send out the link for those that are interested in kind of looking at it again. But let's talk about how this shows up with our clients, right? How this shows up with our clients. Let's say you're showing property, right? You're showing property. Now, if you have a high driver personality and your buyer is a high driver personality, how do you show them property, right?
Right to the point.
Yes, perfect. That's exactly the answer, right? It's straight to the point. If you've got a high driver, they don't want to spend an hour at the house. They don't. They want to get in. They want to get out. They want to see the main things that were important to them. They want to know the price, right? And they're going to make a decision fast, right? They're going to make a decision fast. Investor types tend to be high driver personalities, right? Investor types with potentially a little bit of S, and we'll talk about that, right? But investor types tend to be high D personality types. They're not really looking at, they don't want to spend forever there. And you know what the high driver's worst fear is? That they're going to get taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Because they make decisions fast. They make a decision and they think about it later. They're like, oh, I made this decision. Oh my gosh. Did I just get screwed? Was that a good deal? Right? Oh man. Was that the wrong decision? That's your high driver personality, because they act first, think later, right? That's your high driver. Now, what about your high I? How are you working with your high I personality if you're showing them property?
With energy and enthusiasm and so excited.
Yes. Claudia, you've taken this before, for sure. You're super excited and they're envisioning their life there and there's a lot of energy and you're like, oh my gosh, can't you imagine your family being in this kitchen? We're painting them the picture of their life, right? The neighborhood, the community that they want to be a part of, right? That's your high I personality. Is they want to know what it's going to feel like. They want to know what it's going to feel like. It has to feel right for them, right? It's a very feeling oriented person, right? It's a very feeling oriented person. They want to see the whole virtual tour and all the pictures and go spend time looking at everything and visualizing their home there. And because of that, they take a little bit of a longer time making the decision, right? So what happens when you have partners that go see a property and you've got a high D personality and a high I personality? You got to kind of mesh and show to the two of them. The high D is the one that's getting irritated that their partner is spending so much time and they're like, honey, I like this one already. Let's make the decision, right? And the high I's like, no, I want to look at everything, right? That's your high DI. What about your high S personality? I gave you guys a little hint on this one.
With a lot of patience.
Your high S personality, they value stability, right? They value that stability. So what do they want to know? They want to know that they're making a good investment. They will take much longer to make a decision. They're going to take much longer to make a decision. And this is where we get frustrated because we expect everybody to make the decision quickly. We're like, this is an awesome property. We love this house. It has everything you said you wanted. And they're like, well, I need to look at this and I want to, figure out. And they will take long to make the decision, but they will have less buyer's remorse than a high driver personality would, right? It's funny. I was talking to an agent yesterday and they said they're listing land for a client that they sold that client last year because the client changed their mind and now wants to invest in something else. High driver personality, very high driver personality, the client, right? Bought a piece of land and was like, I'm gonna buy this is what I want to do, and then completely changed their mind a year later and is listing the property and buying something else, flipping it into something else, right? Because it wasn't, they moved quickly and they weren't that high S personality. The high S personality would have like taken forever to finally buy the property, might even have taken the whole time that this person is now bought and sold, right? And now made a decision on something that they're not gonna want to get out of, right? They're not gonna want to get out of. That's our steady personality, our stable personality type. What about our high C's?
Bring your numbers out, statistics.
Exactly. Your high C's want to know days on market, price per square foot, right? All the details that we don't always talk about, the little things, they want to know those things. They're very highly analytical. They want to look at everything. They're also going to take longer to make a decision, right? But again, in our CS, we're going to have less buyer's remorse, right? We're going to have less buyer's remorse than we would in like our driver and our I personalities. So it's really important that when we're working with our clients, one of the exercises that I had started to do, and I'll know I stopped doing it, but I'm planning on doing it again, right? You guys know I'm transparent and with you guys, is I would talk to a client when I was meeting with them, and in the top of my little piece of paper, as I got to know them, right, I would write out, oh, this person's a high D, right? This one's a high I, right? I would just, in the corner of my paper, it would say I, or ID, or if there's two different partners and they both have different things, right? I'm sharing them both those different things. So all of a sudden, if I have a very high C personality, what did I have? I have a printout with all the little details highlighted for that person, right? And I'm like, hey, I wanted to make sure that you guys had this packet of information for you. Well, now for the high I personality, I'm over here painting the picture for them, right? The other person is doing this. They're holding their paper and they're like, oh, and they're taking their notes, right? And I'm over here showing the other person the property and selling it to the other person, because this person is making the decision in their head and the high I personality is making the decision in their heart, right? They're making the decision in their heart. And either way, at the end of the day, logic makes people think, emotions make people act, right? But the emotion for the high S personality is what? The high S, high C personality is that it's the right choice. It's the right investment. It's that they feel confident in their decision to move forward, right? They feel confident in their decision to move forward. Whereas the high I is like, this is my dream, right? This is my dream. And so we need to cultivate that within our clients. We need to have an understanding of how this impacts the way that we work with people. We need to know that sometimes we need to pivot the way that we communicate. And this is really different from, if anybody's ever read the 5 love languages, right? The 5 languages of appreciation, which is really good in the workforce. This is also why on teams you get personality clashes, right? So I give you an example, and it's so funny because, so obviously me and our leadership team, we talk about these things as they exist with us too, because we all have different personality styles. For those of you that work with partners, that work with spouses, that work with administrative assistants, with transaction coordinators, right? If you work with other agents, whatever that may be, understanding each other's personality styles is going to be really important as well, right? Because what happens? A high driver wants the answer right now. I'm a high driver. I know myself. I know I'm very results oriented. I know that I can look at the numbers and I can make a decision very quickly and want to move forward, right? Whereas an admin personality or a market center administrator personality, right? That's my team. But for you guys, it might be an admin personality, right? Want to look at the numbers. They want to be able to analyze everything and have the time to do that. And it's going to take them a little bit more time to come to the decision, right? So there has to be a medium. There has to be that compromise. There has to be that, okay, why don't we, make this decision? We're going to look at the numbers first and we're going to analyze it so that we can confirm that this is the right decision, right? So this is also, how do you work with the people on your team or the people that are in your world or your spouse, right? I saw that look, right? Is do we know, and it's really funny because I'm going to tell you guys, I've been listening to this new podcast. I'm going to share it with you guys. It's amazing. It's called The Messy Empire. And I talked to you guys earlier about how, this woman sold, 38 homes through prospecting on Match.com, not intentionally, right. Kind of happened as a subset. Well, she also used to send every single, she sent her husband, who she met online, right? She sent him the disc profile before their first date, right? So that she could understand their personality. This isn't just for sales. This is how we work with people. This is how we communicate with people. Have you identified your parents' profiles, right? Your family members. I mean, it changes the way that we work and we operate when we have a better understanding of how somebody thinks and how somebody makes decisions and how somebody acts. It gives us more empathy, right? It gives us more empathy, but it also makes us a stronger negotiator. It makes us a stronger salesperson. It gives us, it increases our conversion, right? It increases our conversion because we're meeting people where they're at. We're meeting people where they're at, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I see a couple notes on the sides. I saw that is so cool. I think that was for the binaural beats, right? The binaural beats. I'll post that again for you guys from Mindset. Again, I love playing this in the background while I work or some of them while I sleep. Expressing gratitude, guys, is important. Highest form of energy. I promise you, if you start your day by thinking about the things that you're grateful for, and make it an exercise to think of at least 3. But if you made it an exercise to think of 3 things that you were grateful for and you can't repeat them, you can't repeat them. It has to be a different thing, right? Or you sent 3 text messages to people in your life to say, hey, you know what? I'm really grateful for you around this or around that. I guarantee it changes your life, right? I guarantee it changes your life. Mark said there are 4 personality types, which I love this. This is probably really similar to your DISC, right? But it's as animals, the bulls, tigers, owls, and sheep. Bulls being straightforward and dominant, right? Our driver personality. Tigers wanting to be entertained, are very high I personality. Owls is skeptical. I would say owls is probably going to be your C personality, right? It's going to be your more client data personality. And then your sheep wanting to be guided. That's that stable, right? That's that very stable, that steadiness personality. So that's a great way to look at it as well. You could totally, in the corner of your paper, draw the animal, right? You could also draw the animal. I'm a high D, so I'll know I will be, I like DISC, right? Very direct as well. But it's just really good for using this in their worlds. Can anybody think of a way that they would use this for themselves? Or if you use it already? Or questions?
I use it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time to cater to my customers' needs, because it's not about what type of personality I am. It's about what type of personality they are. And we are most likely to do business with people that are like us. So, and we like people that are like us. So it is kind of like a trick in getting people to like you a little bit better, because you're mirroring and matching so that they feel like you care for them, and you do, because using this is caring. You're catering to your customers' needs and how they perceive the transaction.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that the difference between persuasion and manipulation is what? Anybody know the word? Starts with an I. It's intention.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's intention. There are a lot of tricks that we have, the quote unquote tricks, right, that we have in our toolbox that make us better, that make us more persuasive, right? But the difference when we use those tools that we have, the difference between persuasion and being a really good persuader and being a manipulator is the intention that we have behind it. So our intention, and we've talked about this, our fiduciary duty is to help people. It's to guide people. It's to move them forward, right? That's the difference. Now, if we're doing it because we just want to close the paycheck, that's different, right? The intention is different, and that energy comes across, right? That energy comes across. That's just a really scarcity mindset. So we want to come from that abundant mindset and know that this is a tool that we have. It's kind of like, I don't know about you guys, I have my whole little toolbox, right? And I'm like, oh, I need this one today, right? I also have, it's funny, if you've ever walked into my office, above my door, I have something that says wait on it. It's WAIT. All it means is, why am I talking? Right? I'm a high driver personality, but I'm also a high I. High I's are very talkative. Right? High I's, that's why I come on in the morning and share with you guys. No, I'm just kidding. Right? But high I personalities are very talkative. And so when I'm having a conversation with somebody, that's my personal reminder to myself to, again, adjust to their personality style and to listen and to ask questions, right? It's so that we can be that more, we can meet them where they're at, right? We got to meet them where they're at. So I'm hoping this was helpful for everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, good. I'm glad. I'd love to know, we cover a bunch of different things on these morning sessions. If there's something that you want to know about, if there's something that you're like, you know what, this is the topic that I want, because I'll look at things as they're happening in the market or as they kind of come back onto my radar or what I'm feeling might be important to the moment. And you guys know I talk about industry news as it comes up and things like that as well. But if there are things that are important, that you guys want to cover, or topics that you want, I see NLP. Would that be helpful to go? So we went a little bit on disc profile today. NLP is very broad. And so for those that have not heard NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I would be happy to cover some of that. I'll look over some of my old manuals as well on it. I was actually neuro-linguistic programming certified years ago as a practitioner. So I will look that up. But anything specific with NLP, because I'll know, there's a lot at sensory acuity, There's going to be things like building rapid rapport, right? Building rapid rapport. There's going to be pieces like understanding different learning styles and how our language, how we communicate, embedded commands. Or we could do all of the above and kind of cycle through some of them.
I think building a rapid rapport is very important. And you said something else right after that.
Building rapid rapport, sensory acuity. I said language, right? Like how we rotate our language patterns. So you'll notice sometimes
embedded commands.
Embedded commands. Okay, cool. So rapid rapport and embedded commands. All right, guys, I got you on that. We will do. I love NLP, you guys. I'm gonna give you one little trick that I think you can implement. Well, if you see people. If you don't see people, then that's gonna be a little bit different. And I'll go over this when we actually do a session. But one of the ways that I used to do this in I see Let's Cover All Areas and do a series. Okay, so I'm gonna search my manuals and I'll break it up. I used to actually do NLP trainings. I once flew to Chicago to give an NLP training. So there's a lot of fun with it. I think there's a lot of really good information, and I'll break out some of that for you guys because I think that there's things that are really important for us. The one I'm gonna note, right? I used to do this in restaurants all the time. I would be at a restaurant and I would find some random person at another table, right? And I would start mirroring what they were doing without them noticing me, without being obvious, right? Because it's just, they needed to be in my peripheral vision. So if they took a drink of water, I would take a drink of water. If they put their cup down, I would put their cup down. If they picked up their fork, I would pick up my fork and I would take a bite until I was practically mirroring what they were doing. And then I would switch it and I would go and grab a glass of water. And 9 times out of 10, if I did the mirroring long enough, even without them seeing me in their peripheral vision, right, unconsciously, what would they do? They would take a drink of water. Right? There's a lot of power on it. It's kind of like, we said, like a trick, right? It's kind of like that magic trick. There's a lot of power in our unconscious mind. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that as we talk about them, we'll talk about how you apply it to your business, right? We'll talk about how you apply it to your business. So with that, you guys, I know there's a lot going on today. I know I need to jump onto my next call, but I hope you guys have an absolutely phenomenal rest of your day. And I will talk with you soon. Bye,
Thank you, Monica.
Absolutely.
Bye.